Am I the a-hole for threatening to kick my stepdaughter out over our family vacation? I should specify beforehand that this account doesn't belong to the person telling the story. She's never heard of a subreddit before, but after spending a 10-hour road trip together, where we, her biological daughter and I, her daughter's best friend, read her posts from this subreddit, she felt inclined to share her own story. I will be writing this in first person. I just hope that doesn't confuse anyone. I, 53F, recently had an argument with my current husband, Tom, 52M, and his biological daughter, Jess, 17F, about a trip we had planned 9 months ago that I feel was entirely avoidable. I found out in late March that my niece, Alice, 15F, who we haven't been able to spend time with, was allowed to visit us this summer. Her home life is abusive, to put it plainly, and I jumped at the opportunity to have her here sooner during her spring break. I asked my husband if the upcoming trip we were taking out of state could be family only. There wasn't enough room to bring everyone, and I proposed we uninvite Jess's boyfriend, Byron, 20M, and take Alice instead. He was okay with it, and we both agreed he would be the one to break the news to Jess and Byron. This was over a month before our trip was scheduled. Weeks later, he came to me and suggested paying for a rental car. I hadn't realized it at the time, but now I believe it was because he never intended on telling Byron he couldn't come. I told him that it was unnecessary. We have 2 working vehicles if you don't count the RV we already planned on taking, and spending $400 on a rental seemed irresponsible. It devolved into our first argument, where he said very angrily, "Why can't I do what I want with them? Why money?" It came as a surprise. We both provide equally, and ever since we began this relationship, we never bothered separating our money. During the week leading up to our trip, he brought up the rental more than once, and each time I told him no. That Friday was when Tom admitted he hadn't told Byron he wasn't coming and that he wasn't planning to. We were supposed to leave the following Monday, so you can imagine how irritated that made me. Then the most surprising thing happened. On the way home from prom that Friday night, Jess and Byron got into a minor collision with a deer. I emphasize minor, as neither were hurt, thankfully, or sought medical attention that night or the following 2 days. The car is still drivable, but since the airbags were engaged, I believe they're considering it totaled. They drove to Byron's, and Jess didn't come home until the following night. She entered in hysterics, going on and on about how she never thought she'd see us again. I'm sorry if I sound disconnected, but you'll see why in a minute. That Sunday was Easter, where we hosted. Jess had left early to run errands, ate a late lunch, and when she got home, she went to her room and took a nap. I cooked a massive meal for this extra special occasion, as Alice was given permission to see her biological father, my brother, for the first time in 9 years as long as it was under my supervision. Tom called Jess down to eat with us, waking her from her nap, and she begrudgingly joined. As she came down, she loudly announced that she wasn't hungry, which I don't necessarily find disrespectful, but the way she said it irked me. She has had previous issues surrounding her behavior and entitlement for months at this point, and I think it was finally getting to me. Tom told her she could just sit at the table then, and, again begrudgingly, she obliged. She made a few rude comments here and there, snapping at her father when he offered her a deviled egg by saying, "You know I don't like eggs." At that point, I excused myself as I knew that if I had to continue listening to her, I wouldn't be able to tell her to stop politely. What happened next was witnessed by my daughter, Emily, 18F. She listened as Jess began to talk about how Byron probably wouldn't be able to come to the trip now that he needed to speak to his insurance. It was immediately followed up by her complaining about the minor injuries she sustained from the accident, bruising on her stomach from the seatbelt and back pain, which turned into her saying she needed to see a doctor and that she wanted Byron to come with her. Alice and I were hanging out in the master bedroom when Emily came to find me, repeating the things she heard and telling me, I think she might try to get out of the trip. Not only did I agree, but I found it suspicious that her injuries only bothered her now that her boyfriend wasn't able to come. As Emily predicted, only an hour later, Jess told Tom that she wasn't going on the family trip now that she wasn't feeling well. On top of being upset already, since Tom had told me that morning that he never canceled the rental car, this was the first time in 2 years Emily would be with us for family vacation, and I just wanted it to go well. My disappointment perpetuated my anger, and after Jess and Emily returned to their room, Tom and I began arguing again. I came into the living room to verify with Tom that Jess had just canceled less than 24 hours before our trip began, and he confirmed. His despondent and uncaring attitude toward the situation only made me more pissed. The way he let her walk all over him only perpetuated her entitlement, and he refused to put his foot down. I began to loudly complain about her to him, saying things like, "Who just cancels on someone like that?" It's selfish and shitty. There's no reason she can't go. And if she really needed to see a doctor, she could go early in the morning and we could wait for her. I told him that this entitlement was getting out of hand and that he needed to be a parent. In a way, I wanted her to hear what I was saying. That's when Jess exited her bedroom and from the second story loudly asked if I was talking about her. I'm no liar, so I said, "Yes, of course I'm talking about you. Who else would I be talking about?" And reiterated everything I had said to her father. She tried defending herself, telling me she needed to look out for her and Byron's mental well-being. I didn't believe her, and I let her know, calling her out and telling her that this was becoming a consistent behavior. She had told me before that she liked having the house to herself, that she liked playing house with her boyfriend while we were away, and that yet again she was putting Byron before her family. This was the last trip we would have together as a family before she left for college, and she was choosing to cancel, even though she thought she was never going to see us again just last night. That's when she blew up. It was, bitch this, bitch that. You're a bitch. You're an asshole. At some point between berating me, she asked if I wanted her to leave, and initially I said no, but then she just continued. She just kept going on, and at some point it broke my resolve. I retaliated. I told her if she was going to speak to me like that, she could get the hell out of my house. That's when Tom stood up, now angry at me. Not his daughter, me. He was completely silent up until then, happy to just watch until I tried to do something about it. He then started calling me an asshole, telling me not to treat Jess that way, and implying I was in the wrong for treating the house like it was mine and not ours. I felt disrespected, and then he told me he was done with our marriage. He told Jess to pack her things and went with her upstairs to help, which was when she told him, if she comes upstairs, I'm gonna punch her in her face. Somehow, still, Tom said nothing about her behavior. I went back into the master bedroom, followed by my daughter. That's where Alice, Emily, and I stayed for 5 to 10 minutes before I decided to leave. I went upstairs to apologize, finding her in her room and Tom in the hallway. I stood in the open doorway and told her I was sorry for how things escalated, and she immediately cut me off, telling me that I wasn't sorry. I couldn't control my face, and I found it hard not to smile. I guess the attitude she had when she said it was amusing. It only enraged her further, and she pointed it out. I told her I was just waiting for her to finish and that she wasn't allowed to tell me what I was and wasn't sorry for. I said, I'm sorry for how it escalated. You don't need to leave if you want to stay here, but I never apologized for the things I said about her behavior. She told me, why would I ever want to stay here again? I replied, okay, well, you can leave, but I'm just letting you know that I'm not kicking you out. Jess walked deeper into her bedroom, so I left her alone after that, and both she and Tom continued to pack. He put it all in the rental car, he never canceled, and left. I decided the next morning that Emily, Alice, and I didn't need them to have a nice vacation. It's been some time between this incident and the time in which this was written, and already a lot has happened, but this is just what I'm worried about. Was I the a-hole, and did I overreact? Or are my husband and stepdaughter in the wrong? TLDR, my stepdaughter continues to prioritize her boyfriend over her family, and uses a minor collision as an excuse to cancel on our last family vacation before she goes to college. A heated argument ensues, where she calls me a bitch and threatens to hit me, and my husband sides with her after I kick her out of my house. Am I the a-hole?